Right, I'm here for another episode of Thorinquiry, and this one is going to be with Carlos Rodríguez. You might know him as CarlosR, formerly Ocelote in the esports space. Obviously, if people haven't seen it, over on my esports channel, I did a lengthy reflections interview with him about his time in League of Legends and some of the things that happened in esports. And actually, in this interview, if people don't know my side channel, the whole point is it's non-esports stuff. And a lot of it, I like to talk about philosophical things or what people's beliefs are, their life experiences. So I thought one area we could actually pick up on a little bit of what we addressed in the esports interview, Carlos, is I wanted to ask you, I want to hit a lot of big topics, just big topics in life in general. So one of the first ones I want to talk about is mental strength. And so in your particular case, one thing I want to ask you is, in a world that is increasingly more connected by people on the internet, and people can anonymously send you messages or even anonymously and make you feel bad, or you can get information through the screen that upsets you. How do you, or what has your experience been of overcoming like what people might describe as hate from people on the internet, or just general coldness, maybe people you knew in the scene once upon a time turning their back on you? How do you handle that? What have you got, some techniques or some advice as to how people can get through those experiences?
I mean, you can hello again, Thorin.
Right. It's all good.
It's nice to see you as well. Yeah. So you can either patch a problem, which is only a short-term solution. There's a lot of things you can do to patch the problem. You can just look at the profile of these individuals that are talking to you. You can just check their past comment in Reddit. You can check, and very often, if not almost always, you will realize these people are just irrationally hating on everything. So when you do that, when you realize that is the case, then it affects you a little less, yeah? But things like this only patch the problem, yeah? The actual solution, and that has worked for me at least, is to know that most people are inherently good people, yeah? Or what is good people? I mean, they don't kill, they don't, most people, even those people that you heavily disagree with politically, believe they are right, yeah? And yeah, you can argue that some people might be more entitled than others. Some people might be more jealous than others. But ultimately, the baseline of humanity is pretty good. Like, people are good people generally. And I think that's a good assumption to come from. With that in mind, you have to always think of when somebody is shitting on you for a specific, for a political belief, for example, then you have to understand where it's coming from. You have to understand that this person generally believes you're being evil. This person generally believes you're making the world a worse place by your political beliefs, right? If instead, if you're a professional player, if you're an athlete, if you're a competitor in any realm, and you receive hatred from people because you're just, for whatever reason, imagine you're a sports player, you're a striker, and somebody's just sitting on you on Twitter because you failed a couple of goals, Well, on one hand, what it's coming from is it's coming from immense love to the team that he's following, immense love to actually even potentially you as a player, yeah?
Sure.
Immense belief, a lot of emotional investment into you winning, when you make money from fan base, from a community, very often what you're doing is you're extracting their emotions and monetizing them, yeah? That's what entertainment is. That's why entertainment industries are industries that are actually profitable, because you're using people's emotions and monetizing them. So if you take every single ounce of negative feedback, every single ounce of hatred from this point of view, you will feel much better about it. There's always a reason why people, go out there and, if you're rich, imagine you're rich, right? If somebody that's grown poor and everybody around them is poor, and they grow up generally believing that rich people are bad, and the likeliness of you receiving hatred for that, is very, very high. But you have to understand where they're coming from. So I think that the ultimate solution to this problem is to understand that nobody really has, or I'm sure there's some people out there, but not many people have genuinely bad intent, ill intent. They just either don't know better. They're either, inherently a little bit more jealous, perhaps. They're maybe not understanding that the best way to live life is to take full responsibility, self-accountability for everything. And they don't know what they don't know, so it's only normal that they shit on you. Once you understand that, nothing really breaks you.
Along these lines, this is obviously something that people will recognize you did in your esports career, and I've certainly done it myself. Like I think you put it out pretty well. To me, these people, the reason it's somewhat irrational that they have this hatred is because they would find someone else if it wasn't you or me. Like essentially, like you're saying, it would be a different sports star that they don't like, or it would be someone else in the celebrity world or the political world. And essentially, it's like the former scapegoat. They're getting all the like psychic darkness out of them by projecting it onto someone else and then attacking that person and then feeling like they did something. So one thing I would say is this: I wouldn't ever say that I like directly provoked people like that. I'm just aware they exist, and I like the way you framed it. I just found a way to monetize them. Like, I'll tell you a very brief anecdote. There's a story, whether it's true or not. I think some stories are sort of true in their essence, whether they really happened or not. There's a story that says that the guy who was behind Elvis Presley, the super famous rock and roll singer in the 60s, etc., the guy who was behind him and was his manager also secretly sold the like badges, because that's what people used to wear back in the day, that said, "I hate Elvis." Because he was smart enough to realize there's going to be some people hate this guy. So why don't I just make the money from that merch? Like, someone's going to make it, so I'll just do it. And I remember thinking, like, dude, that's genius. Because essentially, if people aren't going to hate on you, why not find a way to sort of channel it towards what you're trying to do? Because think about it, if our space in esports wasn't ever about just being the most liked. It was about things like just direct engagement. Like, how much does the things you say pop off? Like, essentially, can you draw the public's eye? What would you say on this aspect? Did you consciously do this sort of thing? Did you figure it out as you were going along? Because obviously, it was a big part of your approach in G2 social media wise, right?
For sure. I understand attention economy better than most people better than anybody I've met, actually. I understand that, I've read a lot of books. I've followed a lot of history. I could speak with you about history, different wars, different conquests, different points in time, different specific figures for literally weeks, without stopping, because I'm so intrigued by it. And I've read 1,000 things. And what I've noticed is that there's not one figure in the history of humanity that was extraordinary in any realm that did not have almost an equal amount of absolute haters and absolute lovers. I want to say very rarely, but actually in reality, I want to say I have never thought of a single human that is absolutely excellent. I'm talking about leaving a legacy level of excellence that has, that when you speak to people about him or her, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, he's okay." No, it's never like this. There's always a lot of emotional investment into these people. And what happens is that the way humanity operates is which by the way, I think is the same reason why I believe people are fat or people are LGBTQ or whatever it is. I think that is just attention. They want to make themselves the center of attention in some capacity. When people realize that by disagreeing with the group, they become unique in their own way, not by their own deeds, but by their beliefs, then when you start understanding there's two groups. Even the absolute best human on the planet will have an immense amount of haters on the other side, just because it will make whoever disagrees with the crowd unique in some capacity. Yeah. So just in general, understanding that if you want to be absolutely extraordinary in any vertical, you will face almost an equal amount of hatred than love. Understanding that is just gets you halfway there, because most people don't take immense public risks because they fear the repercussions, because they fear that, oh my God, what if everybody hates me and so on, And as a result of that, they don't take the next step. As a result of that, they live a life of quietness and not extraordinary accomplishments. And, they never take that trip somewhere they really wanted to go. They never just quit their job and do what they have in their heart. They always wanted to try. And then it's too late because they're too old to do that. And then they die miserable. But taking those risks, understanding that there will always be haters and people that root against you. And even to a degree, even your parents can at some point say, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Yes.
You're not meant for this. You're not supposed to do this. You're supposed to be an electrician like your dad. Even even the people that love you the most on this planet will, to a degree, become haters sometimes. Yeah, it can happen. Yeah, you need to understand that there's nothing extraordinary that comes without that level of polarity, emotional polarity.
Let's talk a little bit about that then, because there's another thing I would say is a big contributing factor to my own success and my own mental strength is this notion that you dare to dream of bigger things. And when I say dare to dream, I don't just mean you leave it there. Like, you actually think, I can do this. I'm going to keep trying even when people tell me not to. Because I agree, if you talk to a lot of people, it's even how they want movies to be. Like, say they have a movie about an amazing bank robber. They don't want at the end of the movie that he's like, right, on to the next heist. They want it to be like, no, he just retires after that and he has the millions and he lives on a tropical island drinking pina coladas. It's like, to me, I've never been able to get that, mate. Like, even if people think it's arrogant, whatever, which you notice, by the way, I think it's the way that people socially try to make you not want to be this way. Whenever I would read those stories about like heroes, I was like, dude, this is me for real, for real. Like, I was the Zoomer in that scenario. And I actually do think as well, like you say, it's about like the idea that you understand that you're going to be an outsider to some degree, but it's worth it to be exceptional. Because I would also say that another thing I can definitely agree with is, I'll give you a quick example. In esports, people always try to give me very reasonable, like practical reasons why people don't do things, Carlos. So for example, if I asked why don't the American players in League of Legends practice as much as the Chinese players, they're going to tell me like, well, you have to understand, it's not their culture. And plus what they're doing works in America, they're winning. But the thing is, even though I agree that is actually the way a lot of players think, I'll never be able to understand it on a level, because if you actually were to look at my career, if I only went as far as people who are my competition pushed me, Carlos, my esports journalism would be 10, 15 years behind. Like, you can imagine how mediocre the people were when I started. Like, you remember the days, dude, when I used to come to events and I was the weirdo doing these 2-hour interviews and everyone else was sort of like, what the hell, you just do a 10-minute interview with what the match you just played.
You keep fucking doing it to this day.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Because I was one of the few people who thought it was a thing, mate. Like, everyone laughed at me when I said I was an esports historian. They're not really laughing now. I've done 20 plus years and no one else can sort of compare. So yeah, what would you say to this? Like, have you always been someone who dreamed big? Did you always think I'm going to be some sort of exceptional figure? Is it important to you now?
Well, I don't think you're born like this. I mean, I don't think you're born believing you're going to be an extraordinary figure. I think that you definitely have on your DNA something that at least demands more from your body and from your deeds. Yeah, and I do definitely have that. In other words, I will not feel really happy internally unless I'm playing poker with the best cards in hand. You understand? Like, if I'm playing every poker hand with a 2 and a 5, I'm going to live miserable. What would be a 2 and a 5? Living in a place that I'm surrounded by losers, having a circle of losers, and having a life of no thrill, having a life of no progress, not having mentors around me that are significantly better than me in specific verticals, etc., etc. I'm playing with a 2 and a 5. I might win some hands, but most I will lose. I might win some hands because I might be a genius. But even a poker genius, if he always gets a 2 and a 5, he's gonna get fucked.
Sure.
So I want to play with an ace and a king. Maybe not the best hand, but it's very good. It's pretty damn good. On average, it's pretty damn good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the way I saw always life, and that's the way I saw always. Sort of my accomplishments tied to my level of happiness at a deep level. But I can tell you that I have a lot of ego, and I think ego is a fantastic thing to have. I always struggle to understand the importance of ego, and when you meditate, and I meditate since I'm 17 years old. That's 16 years meditating. I've learned, or I've gone through different stages, where at some point ego was seen as something I should keep, almost detached from. Ego can also be seen by society as a bad thing, or is often seen by society as a bad thing. But I've come to realize, even after many years of meditation, many years of living fast, quick, doing a lot of things, failing, succeeding, that ego is the best tool that I have to remain competent and to remain always hungry to improve and to remain diligent and to just become better every day, to take better care of my people every day, to do more extraordinary businesses, more extraordinary things every day. If I wouldn't have this immense amount of ego, I wouldn't push for any of this. And what is ego in this case, bro? For me, my favorite movie is Gladiator. So that should tell you a lot about my thinking.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I see myself as a modern age gladiator, right? That's the way I envision the joy of my life coming from. Being the epicenter of a lot of eyes. Maybe I win, maybe I lose. Most battles I will win. But those I lose, I will remain alive because the Caesar will keep me alive because I'm the most extraordinary warrior, the most extraordinary gladiator in the arena. I'm so fun to watch. I am, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And at the same time, I'm providing value for people. Alternatively, the way I see myself is as a commander of troops of some kind or a king type. I don't know. That's, when I watch movies, you said before, when you are watching a movie, you're like, oh, that's me, Well, yeah. That's exactly me. When I watch a movie, the king goes into battle on horseback. He's with the first row, and he just charges to battle with his army. That's me as well in my head, And what is that? That is ego, bro. That is ego. That is understanding that there's nothing more glorious than to die having many millions of people see that you have the biggest balls on the planet. You're the king and you're charging forward on horseback,
Sure.
That drives me, bro. That is what makes me better every day, because I want people to see that I am extraordinary, that I wasn't born rich. I wasn't born, God gave me a lot of things. I can't really complain, but I wasn't born with many of the things that people consider almost a must-have to become successful, Sure. And I built myself up as a result of my ego, of my strong ego. Ego is the best fucking thing.
Along these lines, then, I've got a good way to tie this in, because another thing I also think is actually, I used to think it was an annoyance in life, but it's actually necessary. It's like you're talking about, it's the battle. So when you talk about ego, I would say this, right? I don't think of just the name Thorin as like an alias. I think of it as like a separate person almost. And when I'm at home and I'm with family, friends, that's not who I am. Like, I'm a different guy. I'm the person who grew up wherever I grew up, doing the things I did with the sorts of people. And I'm more of a normal guy. But what I think of is this, Carlos. When people come for me and the battle calls and I either have to just like bitch out and just fucking do nothing, or some people are going to fuck with people I care about or things I care about, or they're going to do things that are fucked up that I know I can stop. It's like I just think to myself, right, get Thorin, he'll take care of him. And then I just send him into battle, mate. And the thing about him is he just fucking goes ham. He goes. And I actually do think, for real, it's like, I used to think it was annoying. I actually know I sort of need it, mate. I relish the chance to sort of test myself and to battle these fuckers, especially if I think they're evil. Bro. What do you think?
100%, bro. 100%. One of the things I do, actually, I take a lot of notes, okay? I have millions and millions of quotes and things, words on my notes. I take notes all the time. When I have a thought, I put it into notes and I read them often. One specific page I have in my note, I read it very often. I'm talking about maybe once every 2-3 days. And this is a list of things that the superhero version of Carlos, the best version of Carlos, does. This is how This is how the best version of Carlos behaves. This is not a imaginary figure, because this figure exists. It's just me doing the right thing all the time. Is this the best version of me? This best version of me has a set of attributes and things that he does, and the ways in which he responds to difficulties and problems. And I'm very specific about the way I speak about this Carlos. He has like 40 something, I want to say 41, 42 things he does and he has around him, It goes as deep as the way he approaches problem solving, the way he approaches management of emotions, the way he approaches fear, if there is any, the way he approaches women, the way he approaches networking up, networking down, the way he approaches shaking a hand, the way he, you know what I mean? Like, it goes very deep into the way this best version of Carlos behaves and lives the life. And it is my goal to live my days as close as that version as humanly possible. And when I surpass that version, for example, this version of Carlos is doing every day, is going to gym every single day, right? If I feel like I have accomplished that for a full month or something like this, then I add something on top, you know? Not only does he go to gym every day, but he makes sure that he goes boxing twice a week or whatever it is. I'm just putting an example, yeah? So I'm just making that best version of Carlos better, because clearly, if I can reach the best version of Carlos, it means that there's a better version of Carlos.
Okay.
That can be reached. And I make this, this is a big, big topic for me, actually. This is just having a list of things that the superhero version of me does. And I follow that. I try to follow that as my gospel, you know? So at the same time, you know, having very high ego, Thorin, you know what it helps with? Fucking self-respect, bro.
Sure.
Like, it doesn't matter who's talking to you. It doesn't matter. And I like to apply this to women, actually, because most men are little fucking rats, little fucking insects with women. You know, even successful men, billionaires, you know, super successful people are just little insects with women, you know? Why? Because they let them walk all over them. And I'm not talking about, you know, being a fucking incel, being a red pill idiot, but self-respect is nowadays almost forgotten, you know?
Yes.
When there are things that today, that nowadays are accepted by society, that should not be accepted by society, at least as men. If your self-respect is high, you cannot let some of these things slide. But the problem is that nowadays people are changing their values, changing their level of self-respect, depending who is in front of them. You understand?
Yes.
They're just, it's almost like a populist way of building up your character. It's like, okay, so if the person in front of me is not gonna complain, then I will be myself. But if the person, if I can afford losing the person in front of me, then I can be myself. I will be myself. But if I cannot afford losing this person, or I feel like I can use this person for something, then I will not be fully myself. I will hide some of the things I believe in. I will let them disrespect me, even if it's 1%. Oh, it's 1%. It's a small disrespect. It's okay. It's okay. This person is better positioned in life than I am. I can let it slide. Well, no, motherfucker. Like, if I meet, okay, who's somebody I like? I like Donald Trump. I like Vladimir Putin. Okay? I like Vladimir Putin. I meet Vladimir Putin, imagine, yeah? I shake his hand, and he just slides down at some disrespectful comment. I don't fucking know what it could be. Maybe he makes fun of one of my man bags, yeah?
Okay.
I will get him back with something. I will just maybe talk about his lack of hair. I could just maybe send him to Turkey or something. I don't know. I will come up with something, yeah? I will not let it slide. Why? Because he needs to understand that I don't care he's Vladimir Putin. You know? I don't care who I'm talking with, who is in front of me. We have to have an eye-to-eye relationship.
Okay.
We have to have a similar height relationship. And that's the way in which people that are respectable respect people. You understand? When I'm networking down, if the person I'm networking down with, imagine somebody I could potentially hire for something. If I feel like this person doesn't let himself or herself be punked around, you know, and I feel like this person has high levels of self-respect. You know, not fake self-respect, actually high levels of self-respect. I respect them a lot more. Just a lot more. This is how it goes, you know? You remember in high school when you had the guys the bullies, you know, and they were just, what would happen normally if a bully comes to you? You don't have to fight, yeah, but you can make it very, very clear that if they want to fuck with you, it's not going to be just a rainbow day. You're going to make it complicated for them. You're going to make it a bit miserable, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, so here we go again. You're going to fuck me? Okay, then let's go. You know, you have to, if you add that layer of resistance to the bully, the chances of you getting bullied moving forward are very low.
Yes.
Just very low.
No, I know exactly what you mean by that.
Very similar.
Like I would just say very briefly, basically what Carlos is talking about here is like the bully one's a perfect example because maybe that is a bigger kid. Maybe it is someone you couldn't beat in a fight. Maybe they even have skills at fighting. But what you're trying to send the message of is this. Like if you want an easy fight and someone to pick on, pick someone else. Because if you pick me, I'm going to poke you in the eye. I'm going to grab your fucking nuts. Like I might get my ass kicked, but I'm going to make it bad for you. And the thing you learn about the world, right, is there's a certain type of person in the world. That is all they understand, Carlos. I mean, I've had this in esports. Like the joke is, think of all my friends who are brilliant broadcast talent in League of Legends who've been wrecked by Riot Games every day of their lives. Meanwhile, I've actually been openly hostile to Riot on a bunch of topics. And I can tell you, Carlos, they've privately tried to backchannel me a bunch of times about things and try and make friends. Because what they understand is they understand power and they understand the idea that like I won't put up with their bullshit. So they have to appeal to me in a different way. Yeah, I see what you're saying, mate.
That's exactly how it is, you know. And by the way, I'm not saying that somebody trying to one up you is automatically a bully.
Sure.
But you know, it's just human nature when you're networking down, or when you're dealing with someone that you can quote unquote argue is below you. At least if you're discussing business. If I'm discussing business, I'm talking with Elon Musk. I'm networking up, he's networking down. This is a fact. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then this person will often, just almost as an instinctual mechanism, just shit test you. You know what I mean? Like this is how it goes. To understand what's the level of self-respect you have. This is literally why it's done.
Yes.
It's actually women do the same. Women will shit test you all the time, just to understand what kind of level of self-respect you have. So, for example, imagine, right? You're sitting down with a woman and you order fucking, I don't know, you order meat, right? And she's like, oh, meat? You know, I'm vegetarian. What do you do there, yeah? Nowadays, most men, this is how they react. Oh, yeah, you know, I don't eat a lot of meat, actually, just today, because I didn't eat much protein lately. So I feel like, you know what I mean? Like, they would pussy out of their own belief.
Yeah.
Motherfucker, you want meat, eat meat, you know? If I hear that, okay, well, that would be too much. That would be maybe like I would get fresh with her for sure. But let's imagine I am not in a bad mood or whatever. Okay. I'm extremely benevolent that day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then I would be like, look, I fucking love meat. Not only I love this meat, I'm actually gonna order another one. This time it's gonna be not rare, blue, because I love when the blood pours down the meat. I really enjoy it. I eat a lot of meat. I eat 15 eggs a day. Honestly, I don't care if they are yet not birds or they're actual birds. I would eat them anyway. It doesn't matter to me. I love animals. I eat animals. I was vegan for a year. I fucking hated it. I felt gay. Terrible. I love meat.
Okay.
And then what happens is that the woman is like, oh shit, I'm so hot. I am so attractive to all men. Most men are just dancing to my song. If I tell them bark, they bark. But this motherfucker, he's not doing that. Why? What makes this man special? What is it that I don't know about him that is so special? Because clearly there's something I don't know about him. Because he doesn't give a fuck about me walking out from being vegetarian, from being, hurt by his comments. He doesn't give a fuck. There has to be something here. You understand?
Yes.
And that's exactly the same logic that you must apply when thinking about self-respect. You have to draw your lines. And this is something I've been doing for a long fucking time. I draw my line. And regardless who's in front of me, those lines are drawn. If you surpass those lines, either I'm going to get you back or I'm going to leave the conversation in perpetuity. I'm going to cancel you. I'm going to block you. You're not going to have more discussions with me. I'm not going to deal with you. I don't care if you're a multi-gazillionaire. I don't care. It's never going to happen.
Right. What about this then? Because one thing you mentioned earlier that I actually want to draw in as a point now is when you said about how, I thought you nailed it actually, like the stupidest thing about political differences is they only work as differences if we all talk about like the topic of the day and we only talk about specific scenarios now where it's already been sort of seeded to be tribal, like we're all going to be on opposite sides. Like if you actually make it the abstract philosophy behind what you mean, I agree with you, mate. I think almost everyone agrees on basic concepts. And in fact, I agree that I wouldn't say people are all good, but I'd say the intention is good. So I'll give you an example without using the specifics, because obviously in general, I'm trying to stay away from that in this conversation, right? If I said as an abstract concept, I think most adults do care about like the safety of children, how are children raised, these things. I think almost everyone would agree with me. The point is, they just then politically disagree with like how you actually manifest that in the world, what the right way to do that is,
correct,
who should do it. So you can see how people get lost in all that. So what I would say is another thing I want to talk to you is about the idea of having like boundaries, having ideals that you believe in, where you're not gonna allow certain things to happen because of integrity. It's actually the one thing, by the way, I actually dislike so much about a lot of the people who call themselves my enemies, is that like, here's the thing, in a weird way, I could almost respect when they try and cancel me, because at least they are people who in theory believe something, they're trying to do something about it. It's just that I can tell you, Carlos, from behind the scenes, a lot of them just do that when it costs them nothing, when it's just some tweets or something. Like I've had people who've said outrageous things about me, mate, but then what happened is, the site they then worked for 5 years later asked me to work on a project, and they never said, well, I'm not working with that guy. They just say nothing. They don't really believe in their ideals. They're luxury ideals. So what about in your case? Do you think it's important to have like set principles? Do you defend them to the death? How do you manage that?
Well, that's a good question. And actually, I don't remember having gone this deep into this specific topic before. But let me try to, when in doubt, just say the truth. So let me tell you what I feel. I feel like your belief system, if you're 100% set on your belief system, meaning, sometimes you believe something, you kind of believe something, but sometimes you're like 90% there, right?
Yes.
What could it be? I don't know. I'm not going to get into any topics, but a lot of things people consider mainstream knowledge. Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
I am not 100% bought on. Yeah. I'm like maybe 90% because I'm using my rational thinking. But at the same time, I'm like, yeah, but there's a non-zero chance that those in power created this lie for the longest time, which leads us to this position we are today.
Yes.
So maybe a 90%, but those beliefs that I have 100% because I know them to be true. If anybody would torture me to change them or I die, I'm pretty sure I would be okay with death. And the reason is because this is the same reason why you don't let 1% disrespect go through. 1% disrespect or 100% disrespect is still disrespect. You understand?
Yes.
This is not that dissimilar. If you sacrifice your belief system, even 1%, what tells you you're not sacrificing 100% eventually for the right conditions, under the right conditions? You understand?
Yeah, it's just a compromise,
it's the same,
right?
Compromise with belief systems are not correct in my eyes. Now, that doesn't mean, like, my belief system is that everybody should believe what they want, right? So it's not like either everybody believes what I believe in or they're dead to me or anything like that. No, by any means, But my own belief system, you cannot change it. And if I believe something 100%, there's nothing you can do that will deviate me from that belief. Not money, not decreasing my chances of survival, not throwing me to jail. It doesn't matter. Because if you sacrifice 1% of those beliefs just so that you can get what you want in this human form, you're sacrificing who you are as a human. And I don't think there's a more miserable way to live than to live in the shoes of someone you're not 100%. I think that is a miserable life to live. In other words, imagine you're working in esports, yeah? And you are having a set of beliefs. You cannot speak about them openly. That can be an acceptable outcome because you're replaying the system. It can happen, yeah? But now, not only do you you have to avoid talking about your own beliefs, but you have to support the opposite beliefs. Yes. Now, what do? Do you support those beliefs or you lose your job? Imagine that will be very soon the case, if not already.
For sure.
Like you have to support LGBTQ or Lives Matters, when it was at the height. Now everybody knows they're just thieves. But before they knew they were thieves, everybody had to support Lives Matter, yeah? And otherwise, I'm pretty sure those social media people, if they would say no, they would lose their job, actually. You understand? So those people had to actually sacrifice what they believed in. I went through a lot of these situations myself, and every single time I did what I thought was right. Every single time, not one time I didn't do what I thought was right. In fact, I had very strong all hands meetings where I would tell people, guys, I don't give a fuck what you think about the Ukraine war. It's not our fucking job to talk about the Ukraine war. You believe Russia is bad? Okay, fair enough. Now, what the fuck do we do with the Russians in our organization, which we have a few? Some of them even play video games and are some of our best people, and also kind-hearted humans that believe the opposite. What the fuck are you going to do? You're going to execute them? What do you want to do? Kick them? That's not going to happen. So we're not going to talk about fucking Ukraine war. Because it's not our job. You understand? And I knew very well that would lead me to problems. And in a way, it did lead me to problems. I had small situations. Small because G2 was run like a dictatorship. So I am the dictator. And that's why it worked very well.
Sure.
But small little coups, that I could mitigate, no problem. But you can see then the blue hair complaining. Me, as if they had the absolute truth of how fucking world's geopolitics operate. But no, that's not my belief. So I'm not going to go for it. I think that living a life where you have to forcefully support the opposite side is a life of misery, really.
Sure. Along these lines, then, one thing I would ask is this, because obviously that's also the same trick that people play that I was talking about, where they, even if abstractly we all agree on like the fundamental principle, they will make it sound like because you disagree, you're a hateful person, you just are trying to be horrible to people. What I would say is, what I'm trying to get to on this topic is, to me, actually, people can completely disagree with what your ideals are and what you're having integrity towards, but I would say it's quite clear you have very strong ideas about what you would think the world should be like, or what you want your life to be like, or how you want to interact with the world. And essentially, whether people can believe it or not, they do come from a good place, right?
That's correct. It's not like I'm an inherently evil person that wants humanity to be executed. I want humanity to be run smoothly. I want humanity to progress. I want everybody to be happy. I want order to exist so that chaos doesn't take over. I want morality to exist so that chaos doesn't take over. I want people to have a belief system that is in sync with creation, whether that is God or the universe, whatever you want to believe in. It has to be in sync with creation, not distraction. You cannot have your God be sexual energy. You cannot be, your God cannot be passion. You understand? Yes. Your God has to be a set of principles that are inherently good for creation and sustainability. So I am in absolute sync with that thought. And yet, I like Putin. Now, how do you explain that? Well, there has to be a fucking reason, or am I fucking it? Am I it or what? There has to be a reason why I think Putin is good, and at the same time, I think the things I think pertaining humanity. There has to be a rational thought behind all of this. Or am I just bought by money? But you know what I mean?
Yes. What about this then? So one thing I would ask you is, obviously you grew up in Spain. I'm going to guess as a kid, was your family Catholic?
Yes.
Right. So one thing I did want to ask you about, but you can touch on however much you want or however little, is people will have seen recently, in part because of where you live in the world, but sometimes you say things like inshallah and you say sort of like things that are within the Islamic world. Does Carlos have a specific religion? Do you have like a strong sense of God or some sort of a force in the universe? Do you have something like that?
Actually, I never made this public before. Until just recently, but I made my shahada, which is essentially the sentence, is the quote you say to become Muslim, pretty much a year and a half ago. That is when, actually a little longer than a year and a half ago, actually. And I did it for multiple reasons. But I grew up surrounded by a lot of Moroccans, which of course were all Muslim. I was always surrounded, like my closest people were often, not always, but often religious, deeply religious, either Orthodox Christians or Muslims, actually. few Catholics, but then Catholicism just has been a little down the drain as of late, so less and less so. But very often I would just see myself agreeing with the similar ideals, traditional ideas. You call them traditional, I call them human or pro-human ideals that religion brings forth. So yeah, I have always been in sync with these people. Even I had a point in time in my life where I was just trying to figure out how the world operated. I always question everything. I'm very curious, right? So many times I would ask myself, okay, if I don't see God, what is God? Is God really real? Yeah. Or is it my parents just teaching me this and now I have to accept it? I was never like this. I always question everything. Bro, I question absolutely everything. I question things like, why is my teacher, she's fucking teaching me? I think she's
Okay.
Isn't a teacher supposed to be extremely competent? Right? And so she's reading a book. We just question everything, including religion, of course. And now I came to the conclusion that there's a 100% probability that God exists, because I have felt God, I feel God, I experience God. I experience God in many ways that tell me, beyond what the eyes can see and your hands can touch. I experience God in terms of magnetism. I experience God in terms of he who thinks he's right and he who thinks he's wrong are both usually right. I understand God as the vibrational and frequency that the world is coded under. And it's perfect. It's mathematically perfect in every way, shape, and form. And the more you dig deep into why the world is coded this way, and numbers is the way in which the world is coded. Sounds are numbers, geometry is numbers, everything is numbers. You realize that there's a 0% chance that all of that has happened as a result of chance.
It's not random, right? It's a pattern.
It is a 0% chance that things happen randomly.
Yes.
So there has to be an incredibly intelligent source that has created what we experience as reality today. I call that God. I call that Allah.
Right. Another big topic that I know is a very big one for you in particular. In fact, again, without going too much into the politics, I know this is one of the things you've publicly stated many times is one of the reasons why you've had this sort of backlash in esports and why you've been willing to put yourself out there, even when sometimes you knew this wasn't the best marketing play, if someone only wanted love and money and all that jazz, is the notion of how important family is to you. So one thing I want to ask was this. This is something I had an epiphany about in my own life, but I don't think I'm unique. I actually get the sense from reading great historical works, literature. This is an experience almost every man has. The sense I had was this, Carlos. I used to think like a lot of people, the weirdest thing in life is sometimes there'll be times when you won't stand up for yourself, because sometimes yourself is the easiest person to betray. You can go, I don't want to get in a fight with that person. I don't really want to look silly in front of people. But if you really love someone and someone was fucking with the person you love, I'd fucking kill them if I need to, mate. If they're going to come after people and things I care about, I don't even want my family or people like that to give in. I want to be like, no, let's fucking battle them till the end. Somehow when it's someone you really love and it's your family, to me, that is the ultimate source of inspiration and strength. Have you experienced something similar? Yes,
without a glimpse of doubt. Actually, I have a son. I have a beautiful son that I love more than my life. And generally, this is generally what I believe. I think every human relationship, whether it's between men or between women, is conditional. Okay, it's a value exchange.
Yes.
I don't think that love lasts forever if the value exchange is very different between one and the other. I think that the chances of that happening are close to zero, or at least the chances of that happening and the relationship being good and joyful are zero, actually. So, however, with children is different. Children, you love them unconditionally. You might have a child that is he's not maybe the greatest human for whatever reason. He's born a certain way, and it never happened to me because my son is insanely talented. I have no idea. This is a super kid. But if he wouldn't be, my love would still be unconditional. It doesn't matter what he does, what he says, you always love him the same,
yes,
which is infinite, But every other human relationship, yes, does not work the same way. It's a value exchange type of relationship. However, and here's where the set of principles come into play. When you decide to include inside of your circle the people you care about, the people that, when you decide to add, a woman to your circle, when you decide to add a very good friend to your circle, or somebody you're mentoring to your circle, or, your own parent, you're born and, your parents are already in your circle forever.
Sure.
Even if they extract more value from you than you extract from them, it doesn't matter. Your fucking parent. You wouldn't exist if not because of them. I'm not saying there's unconditional love there between you and them. Definitely yes, between them and you, but between you and them, I'm sure there is no unconditional love, but there's a baseline of respect that has to always be followed in full. My parents are probably the only people, together with my children, I guess, that could just tell me some nonsense or hit me or something, and I would just, it would be a hard thing in my head, I wouldn't be able to react the way I would normally react with anybody else because it's different, And here, when you choose to get somebody into your inner circle, you have a responsibility automatically. I see that as my duty, as a man. And if you're already in my circle, I have to be ready to die. Otherwise, why would I add you to my circle? That's part of the value exchange that I'm talking about. Part of the value exchange that I provide to the people around me is that I would do anything for them. And when I mean anything, it's anything. Yeah. Now you can argue that these relationships, like I told you about, if they're extracting too much value from you, you eventually take them away from the circle. Yeah.
Yes.
But while they are in that circle, you have a responsibility, you have a duty to do whatever it takes to protect these people. Again, this is me, Carlos. Yeah.
Yeah.
To protect these people, to provide for them, and it also makes me happy at a deep level. I almost feel myself like how a mafia boss always has this familiar feel to everything.
Yes.
I love when I love it if I'm sitting on my villa and on there's a villa attached to it, another villa where my brother lives. I'm there with kids, and my brother has kids, and I have it's almost like it's not just a family as you traditionally understand a family. It's almost like a guild, it's almost like a clan,
Yeah, like your tribe. Yeah,
like a tribe. Exactly, that's the word I'm looking for, like a tribe. That's the way I enjoy this. That's the way I enjoy life, and that's the way I envision the circle existing with each other. And like you said, once there's somebody in my circle, once there's somebody in your circle, you have the duty to provide, to maintain, to protect. And at the same time, also, you have the duty to make sure everybody is doing what they have to do,
Yes.
And not extract value from the tribe more so than they give back. Very important. Otherwise, they get kicked out of the tribe.
Yeah, along these lines, it's one of the things I would say is a way people can look at the world and you can figure out who doesn't have your best intentions in mind. Like, people might know there's a famous trend that they had in America where they would always write these newspaper articles right before Thanksgiving, which is obviously one of the main American celebrations. And they would tell people, like, here's what you're going to argue with your old racist uncle about at the Thanksgiving dinner table. Mm-hmm. And it's like, bro, that's the giveaway that person hates you and doesn't want you to have the best in your life. Because if anything, my advice would be the opposite. It would be like, if you go to Thanksgiving dinner, put all political shit aside, see your uncle and go, that's my uncle. Like, as you said, I might not even like him. He might have things that I dislike, but he is my uncle. He is my family. This is essentially a closer bond than these idiots in the world out there. So along these lines, the question I have for you is this. You'll notice in general in the world at the moment, they want you to do the same concept, but to everyone in your ancestral lineage. So your country, you're all scumbags for the things they did, your people, because they didn't have current values and what people say is right now. And they want you to dismiss everything. Whereas I have to say, I'm going back the other way. I mean, people can say it's traditional, but I'm with you, mate. It's not that it's just tradition. It's not just because it was done that way. It's because it had a logic to it. It made sense. I can see the results. It produced brilliant people who did explore and do the greatest things in the world and fight the right battles and so on. So how important is like the idea of ancestry to you? Like your family going back beyond just Carlos and Carlos's dad, etc.
Very, very important. From the point of view of, it should be your goal to leave your bloodline better than you took it. And
Yes.
what is the point of life if not this? So I cannot imagine a world where you want to die without lineage, without children. What the fuck is the point of living then? Is it just to experience the world selfishly and then move on? What's the point of that if not progress of humanity? How can someone be happy to live a life where ultimately when you die, there is nobody below you that you have mentored become better, to improve the quality of life of the rest of the humans in the future, to improve humanity? What the fuck is the point of living then? I just don't understand it. So yeah, the same applies to your own lineage. The same applies to making those people that fought in the past proud. And I am alive because generations of Rodríguez existed before me. And they had to keep their children alive with, I'm sure, a lot of hard work.
For sure.
And mentorship. And now I want to just stop having children. Now I want to stop pushing myself to become better every day so that I can have children that learn the lessons I learned before me and therefore be better than me. You have failed as a human if you don't have children that end up better than you. You're pretty much a parasite in humanity if you don't. That's the way I see it.
Along these lines, again, if we're talking about like countries or nations, obviously people are going to get drawn into the politics shit. But I thought the cool way we could frame it is like this. If someone asked me, like, what does it mean to be English or to be British? I wouldn't go into stupid political stuff like, well, it's all about Brexit and it was about what was going on here in the markets. Like, that's all the nonsense to me. I would talk about ideals again. I would talk about things like, I think it was brilliant, the idea of like sportsmanship or fair play in sports. That's actually a very British concept if people don't know. Or the notion that if you go around the world and you win in battles, you're a gracious winner. Like you teach the people who maybe lost to you how they can be potentially better or they can improve in some particular way and have access to some kind of a technology. So I would say these are the sort of way I would take abstract ideals and apply them to things I see in my own sort of national heritage, as it were. What does it mean to Carlos to be Spanish?
Well, maybe I have to develop my thoughts a little more over the years, because I'm too sour towards Spain in general to have a non-bias.
Just because of political stuff?
Yeah, I mean, political stuff is the people. It's just, I generally feel like Spain is the most Americanized European country in terms of thinking.
Okay.
So, and American thinking, I can't deal with it. I just can't deal with it. I don't have the patience.
What if I asked you this then? If it was up to you, what would Spain aspire to be? What would be the best of what Spanish people can be?
Very creative, very artistic, very good at team sports, because there's a strong sense of camaraderie built across many team sports, as well as the individual sports, actually, which is also team in a way, because there's a coach and stuff like that, yeah? Even though Spanish people are not the most physically gifted in the world, on average, the height of Spanish people, I think it's like 173 or something like this. I can't remember, 176. I don't know. It's like very, very small, yeah? I'm 180, and when I compare myself with Nordics, for example, I'm small, yeah? And yet, in many sports, Spanish people are fantastic, So I'd say that, I feel like Spanish people, if I have to... Now, also, actually, more things that are good about Spanish people. Traditionally, they have been very familiar, very family-oriented. And traditionally, they have been very caring for others. If you go and do the Camino de Santiago, which is the Santiago path thing, I don't know how it's called in English, but you just walk for many, many, many miles. I don't know how many miles.
It's like a pilgrimage type thing, right?
Yeah, pilgrimage. Yeah, you see that everybody takes care of you for free, and like, there's just a lot of like, this is very Spanish. Yeah, there's a lot of amazing people in Spain, but I think one of the issues of being, like I said before, so creative, so artistic, so is that they lack critical thinking at large. Yeah. And I mean, it's normal. Yeah, actually, this is a good way to explain it. Left brain and right brain. Like left brain is the logic, the structure, the control, and the filter. Right brain is the creation, is the art, is the non-perfect math. It's almost like the way the brain hemispheres work. And by the way, if you meditate, you learn this. Once you meditate for a few years, you understand this very well. The way in which you best meditate is by putting your left brain to sleep and keeping your right brain awake. I don't know if you know this, but this way is when you experience all kinds of shit. You experience light, even though your eyes are closed. You experience colors, you experience shapes, you experience things. Your thoughts become very real in your eyes, as if you were seeing them, but your eyes are closed. This is all your right brain hemisphere going crazy because there is no left brain adding a filter to it.
Right.
Yeah. And I feel like I know if you're very creative, you're not very structured. If you're a lawyer, I'm sure you're not a singer. Okay.
Sure.
Very unlikely. So the problem of this, there's problems and there's good and bad, right? The lawyer will never be a singer or will, never be overly artistic or creative, but the creative person, the singer, will never be on time.
Yes.
He will always be incredibly unstructured. He needs 1,000 people helping him wake up on time and stuff like that. And this also applies to new ways of thinking, applying new ways of thinking. Somebody that is creative, artistic, and so on is much easier to change the minds of, because there is they lack the absolute rationality and logic. Again, I'm speaking in extremes, yeah?
Yeah, of course.
But I think we can all agree that Spanish people tend to be very creative and chaotic in a way, yeah?
Sure.
Whereas German people tend to be more structured, and that's why best lawyers, accounting people, and so on you'll find in Germany. I'm talking about Europe now.
Sure.
And best artists and whatever you call it, with Spanish. But yeah, I think that is part of the reason why Spain has adopted the American mindset so quick, just because the filter is more often than not there. There are good people generally, but just easy to manipulate. Yeah.
Yes. Another thing I want to ask you about is, obviously, because of the way that people tried to drive you out of esports and frame you, and I notice ever since then they still try to characterize you the same way. What they go to as a very easy label, they've obviously done it to me for, so they just try to imply you're a misogynist and you hate women and all the rest of it. But I've noticed you have the same paradox I do, Carlos, which is if you actually asked someone, write down all the things that a misogynist would or wouldn't do, right? They would never include the things me and you have done. And we clearly didn't just do them all only for profit, only for self-care. Like, we have helped many women, we have supported women, we have fought battles for them, we have supported them privately in ways people will never know. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't align with the idea we hate women. So what I would ask you is, how does Carlos think about women? What is Carlos's relationship to women in general and in specific?
I think that, I believe that male energy and female energy are very different. And this can be measured in many ways, shapes, and forms. The energy of the sun and the energy of the moon equate those two energies in a way. Just like waves come and go, just like tides go up and down, so does the mood and the emotional roller coaster of a woman, and of course, that also happens to men, but that doesn't take away the fact that it's feminine energy. Yeah. So I just like to understand things logically. And there is masculine energy, there's feminine energy. Feminine energy is more the right side of the brain, Masculine energy is more the left side of the brain. And of course, there's different, you're nobody's 100% masculine or 100% feminine,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Like, for example, like my brother, Assad, right? He's the most masculine man I have ever met. Physically masculine, and the way he thinks about life and everything, incredibly masculine. But if you see great pictures on my Instagram, he took them because he understands light, he understands colors, he understands shapes, he understands art very well. And there's female energy. Is there anything wrong with that? No, it's not. It just happens to be female energy. It's the energy of creation. It's the energy of understanding taste, etc.
Yes.
But if everybody would be 100% masculine or 100% feminine, the world would be very boring because everybody would be pretty similar. But the beautiful thing is the spectrum in which everybody is part of. Now, with that said, there are bottom lines. And the bottom line is that a woman bears children. And there are bottom lines. Men are stronger. There are bottom lines. Men are more disciplined. More often than not, because that's male energy. Women are more emotional. Women are more loving. You understand? This is just the way the world operates. And anybody that disagrees with what I'm saying has not seen enough life, does not have enough life experiences beyond playing Valorant online and watching anime to understand this is the reality of the world. Just walk in a mall. Just walk in a mall and just look at people. Normal people, not anime people, not Valorant players or League of Legends players. Just look at people, how they react. Go into a shop, see how a woman speaks, see how the man speaks. There's female energy, there's male and female energy. There's a fact. Now, what I think about the role of each of us, we're not better or worse by any means. And if anything, I would even argue that just because of their role in life, the role of women, I would even say, is to a degree more necessary than the role of men. The role of woman is much more loving, is much more creative, is much more nurturing, caretaker.
Sure.
It's a positive force. And sometimes men, I like to conquer the world, and I'm pretty sure, and maybe I get some flack for this. In medieval times, maybe I would fucking go to different villages and just burn them, because that's just I'm a conqueror.
Sure.
Like, this is how I am in my soul. Sometimes men will do things that go against creation for the purpose of self-grandiose, for the purpose of feeding their own ego. Yeah.
Yes.
So I would even argue that women are, to a degree, even more an even more positive force for the world than men, actually. Slightly, yeah?
I know what you mean, by the way. There's a great way someone phrased it once. I can't remember who it was, but when I say it, you might even have heard of it before, where they said, whatever you give a woman, she multiplies. So if you give her sperm, she makes it into a little baby. If you give her a house, she makes it into a home that you feel comfortable
in. I heard it, yeah.
If you give her, some affection, she turns it into love and a feeling of, I totally get what you mean, man. Like, the women are absolutely vital. We need them.
You're working all fucking day, conquering the world. You just fucking chaos every fucking day, just dealing with problems, and then you go back home and you see love, and you see appreciation, and you see understanding, patience. You see, honey, I understand you had a bad day. I cooked this for you. I have goosebumps, bro. Right now I'm having goosebumps when I'm talking about that, because there's nothing more beautiful than female energy.
Oh, mate, I used to think it was just caught from people with their mom or with their wife or whatever. It's not a joke, dude. Even if they're not actually that good at cooking, a home cooked meal by someone you know cares about you, it tastes amazing, doesn't it? It does just taste amazing.
Bro, you can give me a homemade rock, okay, and I will eat it with the biggest grin.
Yes,
and ultimately, bro, this is part of the problem with humanity and society right now, is that for some fucking reason, those in power, I know the reason, I think, those in power have made it so being feminine as a woman is somehow worse.
They make it seem like it's weakness, masculine. Right? It's bad if you do it.
Yeah, they make it what the man like is. Yeah, they make it seem, weakness. They're weaker physically, yeah. they make it seem like it's somehow a worse life path
Yes.
than being a man, right? Like and now you see the aftermath of all of this, of women just being encouraged to be away from their homes, being boss bitches, yeah, and not having children. Now you start to see the aftermath. Angry
Yes.
people, less at 40, no children. They are in absolute hatred with the world. Everything is chaotic. Why? Because we have completely confused the population. The population is confused. The women are growing up and they want to do OnlyFans just so that they can buy the latest Birkin, as opposed to just have a life of depth and love and appreciation and care towards their family and be good human beings, and build something that outlasts their own lives. Man, it's demonic, actually. It's demonic. When people, what the problem is? When like people are lost. So, you lose people that are on the verge of believing and not believing in God. You lose them when you say, these are all Satanists.
Yes.
Yeah? Because it implies that there's some kind of magic going on, and that Satan is a red guy with horns. Yeah.
Yes.
And it implies it's almost like watching a Marvel movie, but it's not really like that. It's not really like that. You can what Satanism and demonic deeds are is just the very opposite, the polar opposite of good, the polar opposite of creation. In other words, distraction, chaos. I think the Bible says. I've read the Bible a few times. I've read, of course, the Quran many times. I've read the Torah. I'm very curious, man. And I remember the Bible had a verse. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it just comes to my head now. It said something like, what people think is heaven will be hell on earth, and what people think is hell will be heaven on earth. Which, the way I understand it, is absolute freedom to do whatever you want, whenever you want, without any repercussions. In other words, you have sex with everybody, you do everything you want. The morality is down the drain.
Yes.
Everybody can kill everybody. You see it as ultimate freedom, as if that would be a good thing. But what makes life not only fun, actually, but a good form of existence is boundaries.
Yes.
It's like, imagine there will be a video game where you can do everything at all times, no matter what. You can fly, you can throw fireballs, you can fly, you can kill, you can never die. You're God. It'll be fucking boring.
Yes.
The reason a game is fun is because it has boundaries. In Counter-Strike, you have 100 health. When your health is gone, you die.
Yes.
It's not God mode. If you're God mode, it's not fun. There's nothing fun about God mode. So this is very similar, actually. You're living life without fucking thresholds of what's acceptable. And that is actually hell on earth, even though it might seem like heaven on earth. So yes, satanic and demonic deeds is merely the very opposite of creation. What is creation? Giving birth. What is distraction? Killing the baby. What is creation? Family. What is distraction? Not wanting to have children. What is creation? Improving your bloodline by mentoring them and making them better. What is distraction? Being unable to do that because both parents are working in a 9-to-5. Meanwhile, the school is just telling children how to be soldiers for them. You understand?
Yes.
There's creation versus distraction. That's pretty much what God versus evil is. And yes, I will call these people demonic, even though they might not feel they're demonic, even though they might not feel like they are going against God. They generally feel they're doing the right thing.
Yes.
But that is because they were deceived by those in power. There is somebody, bro, you know this very well, bro. When women were starting to be encouraged to start working, which everything started as a movement, good for women, blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
But ultimately, it ended up being absolute chaos like we have right now, where OnlyFans is encouraged and stuff like that. But everything started somewhere. It started when, of course, the Rockefeller, made it so woman should be working. Why? So that Rockefeller backed education, which even to this day, it's still the case, teaches children how to be good servants, good peons, so that the system continues to function. So the children then grow up to be what today are your parents, my parents, yeah?
Yes.
And these people are very good peons. These people will tell you, no, you shouldn't chase your dreams. Even my parents, they love me with all their heart. But at the very beginning, they were, no, you shouldn't do this. This is crazy, man. What, video games? What? You're crazy? You should be electrician or something else, doctor, whatever, you know? Why? Because they were inside this machinery created by those in power to retain power and to systematically create peons that allow them to retain and multiply their power. So now you have all these broken families with both parents away from home, with children that are being educated by a system that everybody can fucking agree with me is insanely useless. What the fuck is the name of the rivers worth in your life? I had to learn every river in Europe.
Okay.
For what? For what? For what? Why nobody taught me to be in quietness with my thoughts early on? Why nobody taught me what is the Federal Reserve? I'm pretty sure what I'm talking right now, most people is going through one ear and disappearing from the other. But that just goes to show as proof that the people are just completely close-minded. They don't understand how the world operates. You want to understand how the world operates and start getting into the never-ending rabbit hole? Learn about the Federal Reserve. Learn about why money exists the way it does. Learn why there is inflation. Just learn. And then slowly you will get into the truth. You will get into why this movement exists. I'm not evil. I just understand.
What about this then? One thing I would ask is, people will have seen that, especially since you stopped doing stuff publicly with esports, you're mainly doing some other things now, which we're going to get to in a minute. Essentially, if before like you said in the esports interview, that people could sort of infer or guess what you might politically think, you just didn't say it. And so like you didn't really get in trouble. You sort of like got away with it in a way, and you still got to be in esports and be a public figure and all that stuff. Is it the case now? Like, obviously we're not going to go into all the topics here, but on Carlos's Twitter, on Carlos's Discord, wherever you are you just completely unleashed now? Do you still put any like sort of protective boundaries about things you don't want to go into? Are you just going to be a guy where you're just going to talk about whatever you think or believe now?
99.9% of the times, yes. But just like I had to play the game in esports to build my reputation, credibility, money, and power, I have to not speak about 0.01% of the topics I would like to speak, because I would like to leave.
Okay. Fair enough.
And people might think, this is crazy, but trust me, it's not crazy. Like 2 villas away from me, there is the villa of somebody that if I say the name, everybody's like, what the fuck? Okay, really? In the middle of the war? Like, and this villa is $70 million. Interesting, yeah?
Yes.
So yeah, there are things you just cannot talk about.
Sure.
Because you like to leave.
Yes. I mean, I always give the example.
Maybe at some point, when I feel like I have done enough, then I might just fucking start rambling about all that stuff. But for now, I just have too many things to do in my to-do list. I don't wanna be killed in a helicopter crash yet.
Fair enough. I mean, I always give the example. It's like if you were in a bar that you wanted to go into because there's all interesting people there, but it's run by the mafia. The one thing you don't do is go in and start talking shit about the mafia and how they're all pussies and cowards. And obviously that would get you killed in that scenario. You know the boundary when you 100%. Go into it. So yeah, I get what you mean by that. Right, one last topic I want to talk about.
People don't understand, bro. Listen, people don't understand. What I'm saying is actually true. What I'm saying is that this is how the world is run. Once you become a little bit powerful or a little bit known, once you have enough power, you have to. There are some things you cannot touch. There are some things you cannot touch, because then people will start. Some people will listen to you, and if enough people listen to this truth, then those in power will lose it, because people will revolt. if they know the truth of how the world operates, some people will revolt, you know. And now, by the way, I will say, I see somehow a shift in like the amount of people questioning things they never questioned before. Okay, like a certain 11th day or a certain boat. You know, like questioning things. I mean, if you ask me about this, then I can go all the way down the rabbit hole, but I will not speak about these things for the reason I explained to you.
Sure.
But I'm actually surprised. The amount of people now openly talking about this is telling me there's some shift, actually, really. When have you, man, you've been online, you've been on the internet for the longest time. When, like Tucker Carlson, without going too far, he's asking questions nobody were asking before in the mainstream media.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. If anything, the mainstream media was always about locking that stuff out, whereas now I agree it's sort of bleeding out a little bit. Yes.
So there's a shift, bro. There's a shift. There are things being questioned, like who killed JFK, blah. Sure. What happened on the 11th day? Why is this boat sinking? And then this monetary body is born the year after, you know, sure. Things like this. When you realize all of this has existed in recent history, and then you start connecting the dots. Oh, I understand. Okay, yes, okay, I understand. And those are the things that until I want to say, bro, literally, we're in the epicenter of that moment where people are starting to talk about it. And you know what I think is a big reason? TikTok, bro. What I thought was initially one of the most putrid apps on the internet has become, to me now, one of the only places where truth is spoken about. And if you curate your algorithm correctly, you will be exposed to very high quality shit. Really.
Yes.
I don't get a single thirst trap or anything like that. TikTok right now, to me, is the best app that exists on the internet. And I think it's because China has absolute control over it. And they're saying, fuck you, US. So we're going to do what you were fearing for the longest time, which is allow the people to tell their truth. Yeah. Which is funny that China does that out of everybody. Yeah.
With the way they're marketed. Yes, of course.
Exactly. But it goes to show, that the best thing that can happen on the planet right now is that there is two equally strong forces in play. Not just the West having absolute control over everything, like in the last 30 years.
Sure.
Because otherwise you wouldn't have TikTok. And you wouldn't have these quote-unquote conspiracy theories being spoken so openly about with millions of views. You just wouldn't, because Google owns YouTube, and YouTube is owned by the West in totality. That's why you cannot discuss the politics. You cannot discuss
exactly.
Yeah, some things that I will not discuss because I don't want you to get banned.
What about this then? I thought as a last topic, what's funny is people, because they're so cynical, Carlos, are going to assume this was just like part of the condition to do the interview, and I have to ask you this. But if you know me, like that's not the way I operate. I actually want to ask you about this group you've made called The Circle. Obviously, metaphorically, everyone's circle is like their family, their business partners, people who are friends, etc. Right? In your particular case, the way I wanted to frame it initially is because of certain other people that you're now associated with who've also done similar projects, people are just going to view this very cynically as like it's some sort of like a multi-level marketing thing for Carlos, or he just takes money. And what I would say is this: I actually think a reason behind why, I know why plebs are hostile, because they think everything's a scam. But I think a reason why people in power are hostile to this, Carlos, is because it's actually giving away the game of how they stay on top. So if people don't know, when everyone says like, there's no point going to university, it's not like it's a rip-off for the feet. Like, yeah, that's for a normal person. You can't afford it. But if you're super wealthy and you go to the right Ivy League university in the right fraternity, you will make connections and networking that will make you billions. You will be incredibly powerful. Similarly, that's why secret societies exist, whether they're based around religion or politics, whatever. It's a way of knowing, right? Which people can I trust? Which people can I do something secret with? Basically, if people don't know, you said it earlier as well, like that's the big thing about family. That's why people like mafias do things around family, because the ultimate person you can trust is family. You have an extra reason, just as you said, aside from a transactional reason as to why you should do it. Like there's a reason why it's only plebs that think you have to kick your family out, and if you disagree with them, don't talk to them. Like the super rich ones, it is like like those TV shows. Yeah, they might have battles internally, but they're all part of the family. It's all like we always, at the end of the day, come together in some ways. So on this topic, like, give me some of the thoughts of why you're doing this circle project. 'Cause it seems to me like some of these aspects, you're sort of trying to give a pleb access to some of these things. Like, hey, if you want to know about like cars, for example, we've got a guy here who knows about import cars. If you want to understand the tax system, maybe there's a guy here who can give you tips. Essentially, you're trying to enable regular people to have a circle of people they can trust and work with, right?
That is, man, this is very well explained. But let me actually contextualize first a point I want to make. When I started G2, you know the amount of people laughing? I don't know if you remember, but the amount of people laughing.
Oh, loads of people.
At the mere thought of me building an organization.
Dude, everyone even said at the time, you should have just stayed in SK. Like, why is he making his own team? Like, it's just going to fail. Oh, it's ego project. Yeah, of course.
Ego project, blah, blah, blah. It's going to fail immensely, blah. Well, let me tell you, I figured it out at the end. The same way I figured it out when I became a pro player, the same way I'm figuring it out right now as I go. But this will be successful. And this is, unlike G2, this is actually my life project. Why? Because I will never accept outside money. I am self-financing. No investors. This will never sell. In perpetuity, this will be the common denominator in my day-to-day. I'm 33, bro. I will, I hope God allows me to live until 80, 100 maybe, yeah? What do you think will happen when I am building full-time an online community that also has physical presence of absolute fucking animals? I will succeed. I swear, without a glimpse of doubt and a long enough time frame, I will succeed. And you mentioned yourself the reason of existence for the circle, actually, or one of the reasons of existence for the circle. But the way you have to think about it is at the highest level, the circle is not that dissimilar from these already existing private elitist communities. Yeah, you can think of a few in your head. Some of them might even be in the US dollar represented. But it is very important when you realize very quickly, once you have 30, 40, 50 million, you realize very quickly that money is not the only way to attain power. Because at this level, everybody has money. Everybody I deal with, or most people I deal with on a day-to-day basis, has money, enough money to not need my money. Therefore, it's almost like, how do you get these people to help you? How do you extract value from these people to attain more power? And the reason is through very close groups that trust each other, deal with each other, and help each other, provide value to each other. So at the highest level, that's what the circle is. At the lowest level, it's an aspirational path for people to, with our teachings, level up and have increased opportunities to deal with the people from the circle. In other words, you know how many businesses I'm investing in, financing, etc.? You know how many businesses my circle puts together? And you know what's our biggest problem? People. We need an entrepreneur in residence, a CEO that has specific skill set around e-commerce or around whatever it is. Where do we find these people? Fucking LinkedIn. They're literally, LinkedIn people are corporate dogs.
Sure.
That I don't want to have in any of my companies. No thanks, LinkedIn equals all the nonsense I tried to avoid for many years in G2. And trust me, I hired some of the absolute best executives in the world of fashion, in the world of manufacturing, in the world of even marketing, and I fired all of them. All of them.
Okay.
Fucking useless. But now you realize that the biggest thing keeping you away from building more and conquering the world further is not money, actually. Is the quality of people. So I'm solving my own problem by creating a community where I will know exactly who is a motherfucker, who is really an incredibly competent, effective man I can hire for my businesses and things of that nature. So I'm solving my own problems pretty much. I don't know if you know Peter Thiel. You know him?
Yeah, of course.
So Peter Thiel, he did something. He put together an initiative where he was financing the best students from specific universities. he would pick them, make them entrepreneurs in residence, seed fund the project, and those projects went on many times to become unicorns. And this what I'm doing right now with the circle, again, is not that dissimilar from that. It's a performance-driven society. That's what it is.
What about this? So obviously a lot of people who are the haters or don't understand what you're trying to do, they're going to think your whole life peaked with esports, and that essentially your legacy will be either, if it's someone like me, I'll talk about all the things you did in esports and the things you accomplished. If they're a hater, they'll say it just ended with like the tweets you did and you were shamed and disgraced and all that jazz. What I would ask you is this, at the end of this interview, when your life is over, what do you think Carlos Rodríguez's legacy will be on the world?
It had nothing to do with esports. Like, I will be known worldwide for the good deeds I have done for many, and some people will take me as the literal demon that that hates Earth. So that's how it's gonna be, because I'm gonna be extremely influential. I'm gonna be excellent in whatever realm I touch, because that's just my nature as a human. If I wouldn't have grown up in esports, and I would have grown up, I don't fucking know, baking bread, I would have been worldwide known for the bread baker, the absolute bread baker on Mother Earth. I would have 3 Michelin star restaurants all across the world,
okay,
trying to get a table which you need 3 months in advance to taste my bread. It doesn't matter what industry I would have touched. My soul is a soul of success. It's not like my skill set is perfect for video games. There's no such thing as a skill set for video game business building. You're either a good leader that is a visionary, or you're not. And I am. So eventually I'll figure it out, and I'll make the circle an immensely successful project that is going to improve the lives of everybody that enters. That I guarantee. And there's something I guarantee to anybody that enters. I promise you, with 100% certainty, if you consume the content within the circle, you will leave a better man than you entered. This is a guaranteed 100% chance. And I give you another one. The chances of you actually making money, utilizing the money-making methods that we are providing, is 100% unless you have an IQ of 31. Like, if you're mentally avoid. If you're not mentally you will make money. Join the circle.ai.
My side channel is very much made possible thanks to my Patreon community. Now, this video was kindly supported by Raw Daughter, Bo Ado Mushroom, and Yerka86. Do you want to choose a topic I focus on next on this channel? Would you like to ask a question for my regular AMA? Do you want teasers? Find out which guests are coming on Thorinquiry next for those long, interesting, but unique interviews. Do you want to take part in an exclusive, never to be released discussion with me privately? Well, heed this call to action and join Thorin's side today via the Patreon link in the description box below.